Okay, let's code the front end. As we discussed many times before, in the public folder, there is an HTML file. We are going to put all our HTML content here in the div and the ID root. Okay, so first thing is when you start the execution of your front end, this index.js file will get executed. So we are creating using React DOM, we are creating a root for that development, right? And then we are rendering all our HTML content in the development, right? So root and the root dot render. So here we are calling a component app. So as I told you, app is a component, is nothing but a function which returns the HTML content. So this component is going to return HTML content. That content we are going to render in this div with element ID root. Okay, so the strict mode is used when you put our component into the strict mode. While typing, if there is any errors, we will see a warning. So it will be easy for us to type the code. So first is the app component. So as I told you before, right? So we need to have a form and we need to have a table. The form is used to fill the student's data and then create the entry in student, and the right side table is to display the data. So for now, we will check how to create a form. So I will go into the app component. So this app component returns this HTML, the simple HTML content. So it calls the Infoform component. This Infoform component returns the HTML content with a form. Okay. So in this, right, to this Infoform component, we pass a argument which is a props, and that is a function. The reason is once we collect data from the form, we have to send the data to the backend, right, to store in the database. That will be done in this create student function. Okay, so that is done here once the data is retrieved. So first we will see how we collect the data. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm putting all this. So here we have we are calling one component here, info form, to display the form. After this, we have to call another component, info table, to display the table. So all this, so for form component is uses 3 columns, and a particular row, right, has 12 columns. So out of that, 3 columns is used by this component. For the table component, I'm planning to use the remaining 9. Okay, so all these I'm putting in a container, and then I'm having a margin 4. Okay, so because of that, I'm seeing 4 space pixel space here. Okay, so let's go into info form component and check what it is doing. Um, so remember that you have to import the info form component. So this apps and info form component is in form.js file. It is in form.js file, so you have to import that. Okay, so now here what I'm doing is I'm displaying the form, right? For the form, each input element is in a div tag, um, and this there is a label like name, right? Name, course, email, contact, and these are the labels, and I need to have a text for that. Okay, so for this div, right, let me give a style for class name form group dark. Okay, so when I go and save that, okay, let's see what is the difference we are seeing here. So, uh, so what I'm doing here is, so for the input, the type is text, obviously. I'm having a class form control. And then so whenever I type anything in the form, right, whenever I type anything in the form, right, my design is to store in a state variable. I having state variable for all the data, for the name, course, fees, email, and contact, right? I'm using use state hook for that. So use state hook, use state is one of the hook which is used in functional component. This is used to hook and use React features, right? The advantage of use state is the use state returns 2 values. One is the state value and another is a function which is used to change the state value, right? So whenever we change, now here what I'm doing is I'm calling the function set name, and I'm passing the value entered in the form, right? So this variables will be set with this value. So whenever a state variable is changed, right, the component will be re-rendered. Okay. So what happens is, like when I type D, the variable will be changed to D. When I type DD, variable will be changed to DD. So when I type B, variable, the state variable will be changed to DDB. For every change, right, the component will be re-rendered. Okay. So so whenever there is a change in the form, I am setting the corresponding state variable using this function. Whenever you set the variable, the component will be re-rendered. So this is a way, whenever I type this value here, right, in all the form, all the data will be available in these state variables, in these 5 state variables. Okay. So, and we will see the use of name and value attribute later when you do edit. For now, you understand only this. Okay. And let's do a refresh. Okay. There is no much difference we are seeing here. Form group doc is there. Okay. So this is the way we are collecting data. So once I click create, right, once I click the submit create, what happens is, um, on submit I mentioned a function, right? So this info submit function will be called. Once the info submit function is called, what happens? I am getting all the data which is there in the state variable, and I am creating a dictionary. This is the key and this is the value. I'm creating a dictionary as for data. The name of the dictionary is data. I'm using na, cos, em. This is the value I use because in the server side, while processing the request in the controller side, right? While processing the request, I used similar kind of variable, right? Whatever you use in the server side, right? The same thing you have to use it here in the front end also. Okay. So I'm collected all the data which is entered in the form, and this data, right, in one variable, and this data I'm going to send it in the HTTP post request. For this I'm calling a create data function, right? This create data is an argument, is coming as props, the argument to this component. Okay, so create data is nothing but a create student. So this function is called, and we have all the data. So I'm using AxiOS module to send a HTTP post request, and this is the port which our backend server is listening, and this is the endpoint. Info CS is the endpoint, and I'm passing the data, right? In the reply, right, I'm just printing a log as students created. Okay, so let me enter some data and then see. Shiva course is BCA, email is something, contact some number, fees is 5,000. Okay, I do a create. So when I do a create, right, so in the back end I'm seeing the output, right? In the back end I'm seeing the output, and I also should see that entry in my database. So in the database, if I go and if I refresh, I should see one more entry with Shiva, right? So from we are able to we have done the create part using the front end. So we had a form from the app component. We called the Infoform component. The Infoform component, we collected all the data in the state variable, and then we called a function. From the function, we send the HTTP post request. The backend server handles the post request, and then it updated the database.